Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Neil Thrussell, 3 times international best-selling author, co-founder of the Shin Dao, sometimes wannabe couch athlete or a wannabe athlete, and I'm really excited to have my running coach with me and friend Scott Mcdermott.
Woo! Good to see you, Neil. Great to be here.
Okay, so just a quick, who are you besides my running coach? What can you share quickly with our viewership?
So the fastest way I can say this is I was in a 13-year career in architecture, sitting at a desk all day, marinating in stress and deadlines. I got fat, I got really sick, and after doctor after doctor after doctor after doctor not getting anywhere, I finally realized that I needed to get back in charge of my health, and I started to learn how to eat perfectly well. I learned how to exercise consistently. I started to get some sleep at night, de-stress. I stopped playing video games till 2 a.m. And I started to take care of myself, and my whole life did an about face. And I went from 230, 240 pounds down to 185, 184, 6-pack abs. My energy went through the roof. All of my health issues vanished, and I just felt unstoppable. And I went to a personal development course called Enlightened Warrior Training, and I was like, what are you doing? You're wasting your life. I was 2 weeks from an associate partnership in a very successful architectural firm, and I realized I'm at the top of the ladder on the wrong building, and I quit. I finished. I got home from Warrior Camp on Sunday, and on Monday morning I handed in my resignation. They were just gobsmacked. And I went to work in a gym as a personal trainer part-time, and I had to do contract architecture for a while because I couldn't pay the bills as a part-time trainer, but I loved it. I just loved it. I was so fired up. And I realized what I really wanted to do was run my own gym. And so I built a 15,000 square foot gym from scratch in Sylvan Lake, Alberta. It started at 10,000. We were so successful, we expanded to 15,000. And then I just lived my passion, and I did that for 18 years. And through that journey, I've gotten involved in endurance athletics, and I've got a family. I've got an amazing son who's 8, and a beautiful wife. Obviously, we've been married 28 years. So I love to motivate and inspire and work with people and coach. And I that's kind of the short version. And there's a few more twists and turns in the tale, but I think we're going to get to those.
Absolutely. So who's the other bald guy on the call here?
Well, that's myself. Baldness is going to take over, let me tell you. Neil, you got nothing on us, man. We got the slick back. We're ready for action. No hair. Hair just holds us back anyways. Hey, everybody, it's Jamie with UE Coaching. I am so excited to be here today with Scott. You know, we were talking before the broadcast, and Scott was just dumping some absolute nuggets of gold on us. He was sharing all sorts of stuff. We're going to share all that in the show today. I'm jacked. I'm totally excited to kick it off. Neil, go for it. Bring on the questions. Let's get every ounce of awesomeness out of Scott that we can.
So, to many people, COVID absolutely sucked, and you have a reason to know that Scott has a reason why COVID absolutely sucked. He talked about this gym that he built from nothing to 15,000, and I've been at his gym, of an incredible family community organization. Like, it's an awesome place. Just going into it felt so good. And this year you said, okay, I got to get out. How was that for you?
So running a business, and it doesn't matter what business, is challenging. Now, I was lucky because my business was my passion, and I loved a lot of it. I loved the energy we created, like you said, which I think is great. I loved the family we created. I loved working with the staff I had. I had just amazing people that I had the gift of working with. And I loved that. I loved the transformations we were able to make. I loved the community. We had like 800 members. I knew probably 75% of them by first name all the time. I didn't know a lot of the 5:30 in the morning people, but some of them that had been with us for a long time. And like you said, it was an amazing energy. I loved working out in my own gym. It felt just uplifting and empowering, and it was great. And I loved that part of it. And like a lot of businesses, on the other side was the financial reality of running the business. And in the last 5 or 6 years, that's just gotten harder and harder and harder and harder. And as an owner, you get to the point you're like, well, I won't pay myself for a while. And then a while becomes a few years. Yeah. And then we get like every 2 weeks, it's like, oh, how are we going to make payroll? And I remember going to New York for the Long Island Film Festival, and I was in the airport on Tuesday night, payroll's Thursday. And I was like, I better double check something, because I knew we were close, and we weren't going to make payroll at all. And I remember calling my wife and going, you got to pull $8,000 out of our RSP and stick it in the gym account, or we're not going to make payroll, because there's nothing I can do. I can't. I'm not there. I'm going to New York for this film festival, which I was sponsored to go do. I didn't even pay for it. Anyway, so trying to deal with that part of it was just getting harder and harder and harder. And we were running out of resources. We didn't, we'd done everything we could do. And I had hired several business coaches, and it was like everything I tried was good, but not quite good enough. And I was working 80 to 100 hours a week, and I was doing everything you could do. And when COVID hit, my first response was my typical Scotty response. I was like, okay, let's go. And I dug in, and I was like, we're doing online, and we're doing this. And when I started videoing workouts, and I started doing YouTube Live, and I got a thing called Live Leap, so I could broadcast to 8 groups at once. And we were going to, I was just giving her. And then at one point I went, wait a sec. What are you doing? Because I had gone from, 14-hour, 16-hour days to 18-hour days. And I was like, this isn't sustainable. And I built a spreadsheet. I built an Excel spreadsheet, and I did all the math. I'm like, take your emotions and put it right over here, and then let's just look at the numbers. And I met with my accountant, and I met with my business coach, and another business coach, and a gym owner friend, and we looked at the numbers. And if every single thing I did in the online world was unicorn fairy dust successful, we would fail, and we would fail miserably, because the expenses of the building empty were too great. And I made the decision. It took me through all of this, took 3 days. We were closed on a Tuesday, and by Friday, this was a decision that was done. And it's one of those decisions where I knew in every cell of my body, yes, this is what you're doing. And I told my staff on Saturday morning on a Zoom call, and by Saturday afternoon, we announced it to the world. And yeah, I made the decision clearly on Friday, and Friday night from probably midnight till 2 a.m, I sat at this desk and ugly bawled, because I knew the tragedy of the loss that was going to be experienced by our members and by our staff and by me. So that was hard, because that emotion piece came back again for a second. But I knew it was the right thing to do. And I just embraced it, and I drove right into it headlong, as this is what has to happen. And we sold all of our equipment. Our members were amazing. There was a lot of tears, and it was really hard because we weren't allowed to hug, and because nobody was sure what was happening with the whole COVID thing. Was pretty fresh. So it was really hard, but it was absolutely the right thing to do. And it's been amazing. It's been the biggest gift on so many layers. One, not only for myself, to lose the stress of the business part was freeing in a way I can't even describe. And all of my trainers, all of my fitness trainers and coaches have all not only found a different way to play, but they're doing better. Like they've built, like 5 ladies got together and built their own boot camp outdoor system. And they're one of the ladies, her family owns a wedding place with a great big, huge former golf course, lots of space with a great big tent. So if it's raining like it is today, they're outside. If it's sunny, like they're crushing it. And my other two are main trainers are working in an athletic development shop, and one of them is going on for his physiotherapy degree, and like everybody's just finding their own way in the most beautiful way. And our members realized how important fitness was in their world.
Yeah.
And so they're creating it in their basement, in their garage. They've gone to some other gyms, of course, but they're seeking it out now as, hey, this matters, rather than, oh yeah, whatever. So that's all been good. And for myself personally, it took a while. It was very emotional. It was uphill because it was 18 years. That's what I did. And I was a little bit lost for a while. And one of my coaches said, you know what, you need to sit in being lost and just let that be. And so I did that for a while, because the first 6 weeks was a relentless workload, getting rid of all the stuff and making the building ready to be rented. And then it was a month of me homeschooling my son, who's 8, has autism, ADHD, and Tourette's. And I am not a homeschool teacher. I made it work, and I learned, it was great. I learned a ton about working with my son, but it was really hard. But whatever, it was the biggest gift at the same time. And then once some things wrapped up and I got into July, I actually got to back off and really, and it was like my brain went from,
Nice.
And once that happened, I was like, okay, you're 51. What do you want to do with your life? And I started to come to clarity.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love doing motivational talks. I love, because every year, twice a year, I speak to the high school kids about fitness and nutrition and why it's important. And I have PowerPoints I've developed over the last 18 years. And I just love it. And the teachers love me because I can handle a tough crowd. So they'll put me in on Tuesday morning after a long weekend, or Friday before a long weekend in the last class of the day. I can hold them for an hour and teach some things. And I'm like, I just love that. I want to do that. And so I'm like, yeah, but you don't get paid for that. And I was like, I don't care. That's what I want to do. And so I started heading that direction. I got to tell you, the things that are landing in my face that are just exactly what they need to be and exactly where they want, it's unbelievable. That's a big answer to a short question, but
I got to jump in here on something, Scott. You said something really key there. You were talking about speaking with the schools and all that, and you said, do I get paid for that? And the answer was no. Now, I know the mindset of a lot of people, I mean, a little bit minor, but the mindset of a lot of people is, no, I got to go in, I'm a speaker, I've got to get paid my $5,000 or $10,000, and unless you're going to pay me, I'm not going to come in and speak. That's a very different mindset, and there's gold behind it. But I want you, if you don't mind, share from your perspective why doing that is so incredibly important. I'd love to hear that.
Thank you. It's a great question, Jamie. And I noticed another lady was making some neat comments, which was nice to see they pop up. That's just fun. So thank you to that lady for those comments. Yeah, Jamie, it's so rich in so many different directions. First of all, it's healing in a way for me, because my childhood was all kinds of messy things, and we don't need to get into all that garbage. That's for psychiatry, but it was really hard. And I ate junk food as a kid because there wasn't any support to do anything else. Like I had too much leash as a little one. Anyway, and the consequences to that were terrible. And I was in this life of misery. Like I was 28 years old and I was a mess. And I don't want these kids to go through that. It's like, if I can show you a better way. But nobody told me why nutrition was important when I was young. I had no idea. I thought Fruit Loops for breakfast was awesome. And so,
whoa, you mean it's not?
My foundational core belief is everything's okay in moderation. Human beings are designed to survive, and we can literally survive on anything. Every single diet works, all of them. And they all have benefits and problems, and they will take you closer to or further from your goals. You can live on Fruit Loops every morning. Later, you'll probably have diabetes. You'll probably be overweight. You'll probably have problems with thinking clearly. Mm-hmm. So but you'll be alive. So what does alive look like? Anyway, what I love, Jamie, is seeing the kids light up and seeing them come alive and seeing them go, and especially the tough ones that are just like, you can tell that they're not into this. It's like, oh, who's this bald doofus in front of me? And then by the end of it, they're like, I have a question. Just, right? I love that. And then I remember one specific example that wraps this up well. There was a young lady, her name was Natalie, and I spoke to her class. And then about a year later, I think she was in grade 11 when I talked to her class. A year later, she's in grade 12. And now their fitness class would come to my gym for part of their curriculum. They would spend 2 weeks in the gym. And of course, I worked that out with the school. They could come and I would teach a couple spin classes, a couple boot camp classes, and give them a little taste of everything. And I remember I was walking up the stairs to my office and she was chatting with a couple of her girlfriends. And I positive she didn't think I could hear her. And she goes, oh, that's the owner guy. Stay away from him. He'll tell you can't eat sugar and junk food. And I kind of snickered and I thought, well, at least she was listening. And I went upstairs. And about 5 years later, she came back to the gym and joined because she'd had, I can't remember if it was 2 children or 3. She got married and had children, and she gained a bunch of weight. And she came back to the gym and joined one of our programs and started working with our trainers. And she not only leaned out, she was in several international magazines as drop dead gorgeous. And she was the single biggest advocate for sending people to my nutrition talks. And I love that what I was able to help with. I mean, she did all the work, obviously, but to be that spark, oh, that just gives me the goodies. So, yeah.
Yep. And that's it right there. That's it right there. Neil, take it away.
So in the closing of the gym, your gym, everyone has their opportunities for meltdowns, to woe is me, has an opportunity for self-pity in that. But what are some of the things that you've done or you use to get you out of, when you've decided it's time, you've done enough self-pity? What are some of the things you use to get yourself back on track?
You know, I don't give self-pity a lot of space in my life. It does pop in and I feel it for a bit, but I'm like, no, you chose this. Yeah. This is here to serve you. What can you learn? What can you gain? What can you get from this? Like, the biggest challenges teach the biggest lessons. I mean, you know, I mentioned briefly about my childhood and all this stuff that went on. Yeah, that was really hard. But as an ultra distance athlete, the race that I love most is 520 kilometers long. It's 2.5 Ironmans. And the reason I'm good at it is because of my childhood being awfully hard. Because it gives me strength. Like, I'm not, when it comes to triathlon, I don't match the profile. I have a long back and short legs. I'm 200 pounds. Everybody I race is $140, $160. And they're gazelles. They're long and tall and lean. And I look funny in the starting lineup because it was like, who brought the football player? Like, right? Yeah, like, right. So, but I'm strong and I'm stubborn. I will outsuffer you because this isn't hard. Nobody's beating me up. Nobody's trying to do all those awful things to me. This is fun. And so those hardest days were a gift that has made me strong. And all of this, like when I let the gym go, as much as it was scary, and then a month later, my wife lost her job as a teaching assistant because that all went sideways. it's scary. And I needed to look at the numbers. I needed to look at the accounting because that's real. But I was really excited because it's like, I wonder who I'm going to be next. Right? Like something's coming. I wonder what's coming next. Like that's exciting as much as it's scary. And yeah, like I said, there were moments of flat out ugly bawling, like heaving on my desk alone at middle of the night when nobody's around. Yeah, for sure. And that's okay. That energy needs to move.
Yep.
You can't just bottle it down and hang on to it. It's like, in my opinion, it's okay to let it go. To me, emotion is energy in motion. So let it go. And then go, okay, what are we doing here? And I have a long list of favorite books. I've read all this stuff. I'm switched to audiobooks more than anything now because I can listen to them when I run. And I don't listen to anything when I cycle, but I listen to audiobooks when I run. And there's so many great books out there. And one of my favorites is The Obstacle is the Way. And it's about stoicism. It's about like the Stoics. And the philosophy is just like, that challenge is there to help me. It's there to make me better.
Yes.
And that's just the way I see it.
And I love it because I think you for the three of us, you're preaching to the choir here because we're in it. Because sometimes you just got to get down and you need to do it. Like you got to push sand uphill. You got to push things, even though just to get it done. And I'm amazed. It was 28, 29 degree weather, and I'm out running, and I am thinking on how crazy my friend is that he ran 84 kilometers in 30 some degree weather. And I'm thinking, a person that does this can't be really right in the mind. And you said it, it's just stoic. You're just putting one foot in front of the other and just to some degree blocking the pain out. Because at some point in time, I've seen pictures of Scott's little feet after he's ran 84 kilometers, and those stubby little toes don't look so good.
No. My record is losing 7 toenails in one race.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's hard, but you don't get to the summit of Everest on an escalator. Like the hardest things are worth it. And one of the things that is powerful, Neil, that I've really been learning a lot, especially since the crash, a little nugget there, but there's a big difference between things being purposefully hard and things being self-destructive hard.
Yes.
There's a big difference.
Yep.
And I've had a lot of times where I've done self-destructive hard, playing the martyr, the victim. Oh, you watch, I'm going to hurt so much, they're going to see how great I am. I go, whoa, that's not a good game to play. And I played that game for a long time. It took me a long time to figure that out.
Yeah.
There's a difference. There's a difference of challenge for benefit and just self-abuse. And they're very different.
Absolutely. And for our viewers currently online and that are seeing this in via the replay, Scott, we've alluded to, Scott said that there's a crash, and I've alluded to Scott being he's taken part in Ultraman. So I think this is a good time that I'm going to play. It's a 2-minute clip. So you're going to lose us, and there'll be a video clip, and then we're going to jump into talking about what just occurred in the video clip. Jamie, I don't know if you've ever seen this, but when part of this occurred, I think it was a Saturday when I got wind, because with some of the technologies that we can track, and Scott was getting updates on this race, that I even get emotional now that I lost I couldn't breathe. So here we go.
It feels so good to be back. I kind of teared up a little bit getting off the plane and smelling that warm Hawaiian air, seeing the palm trees. The last time I was here, things didn't go so well.
Yeah, Scotty just went down right in front of me, probably doing 60, 70k an hour.
It just shocks you to the core.
I didn't think he was going to survive that crash.
And you're just like, what am I even looking at here?
When we got him here, I don't think the people that saw him realized how badly injured he was.
When he first came in, it was hard to think of him going back to triathlon, let alone going back to Ultraman. I think he was talking about going back to Ultraman before he could even reach above his shoulder.
Ultraman is based on the values of Aloha, Ohana, Kokua. It really is something more than those three words to us, though. It's the way we live our lives here in the islands. We help each other.
I have friends all over the world because of Ultraman.
Aloha and congratulations. We have reviewed your application and are pleased to accept you into the 2018 Ultraman World Championships.
He took all those steps, and of course, here we are. You know, we're back on the Big Island in 2018, and he's done it.
The prize was getting to Kona. The struggle has been the last 3 years after the accident. You know, the victory's probably just getting to the start line.
As soon as I heard Scott was coming back, I was like, there's no way I could miss this.
You got it, buddy! Neighbor's life, buddy!
You can't do this race without your crew. They're your lifeblood.
I'm really a little bit scared now. It looks like there's plenty of time, but it isn't. No, there isn't. There's a long uphill now. It's 16 miles to Waimea and mostly uphill.
And here we are now approaching the final half an hour of official competition time.
Well done. Drew has done Drew is the director, did such an incredible job putting it together.
Yeah, it's an amazing film. And I'm not saying that because I'm in it. I'm saying it shows the family, it shows the experience, it brings us along the journey, the way he brings in the music, the way he cuts out the scenery, the way he blends things, the way he put the movie together out of order, but in enough order that it brings you. He's an amazing filmmaker.
Absolutely. And I thought a year ago in June when you had the world premiere in Sylvan Lake.
Yep.
And one of the reasons that I really was excited to bring Scott onto the show is to talk about that Scott and the production company are bringing the Warrior Code film to a whole bunch of locations in centralish Alberta. Spruce Grove, Leduc, Calgary, Drayton Valley, Sylvan Lake, and it's this crazy amount of places. And just a quick, if you go to the warriorcodefilm.com, you can see where it is. And it's in the month of August, so you've got to work quickly because you were just posted yesterday that in Sylvan Lake, where you're from, there's like 2 or 3 tickets left.
4 last night, yeah. Wow. Well, so a couple different things. We're in COVID rules. So a 140-seat theater is allowed 28 seats. That's not a lot of people, so it fills fast.
Yeah.
And again, so it's part of this whole thing where in the midst of crappy holy cow, there's an opportunity. There's tons of them. COVID is the single biggest gift the planet has ever been given if you're willing to look for it. And sometimes you got to look pretty hard. But in the first part of July, the theaters opened up. I think on Canada Day area where the theaters opened up. And I was like, oh, good. That's so good. I want to go back to the movies. And I looked, I'm like, oh, they're just playing a bunch of old stuff. Like I have all those on DVD.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'd be kind of neat to see Star Wars Episode 5, Empire Strikes Back on the big screen again. But I don't know. I really don't pay, to go see something I've seen a million times. And then I was like, wait a second. Hollywood's not releasing anything. The theaters have got nothing to play. I wonder if they would play our movie. And I started reaching out to theater owners and theater managers. And then I got a hold of Landmark Cinemas. I'm like, hey, can I rent your theaters and we'll put our movie in it? It'll be fresh, new. It's an inspiring documentary about the human being doing something great in the midst of tragedy. I think the world needs this more than ever. Would that work? And it took several weeks of back and forth. And we finally got an agreement. Like, yeah, so we are playing in, I think, 11 theaters, I think 15 different showings around the province, and one location way out in Fort St. John, BC, because I'm from there, my mom and my brother, my uncle, my cousin. So it's really exciting because there's no chance in history that you could take an unknown, self-made documentary and put it in the theaters in blockbuster season.
Yeah.
There's no chance that happens. But in COVID, they can't believe it. Theaters have been getting 5 people a day into their theater. And we have some theaters now they've got 40 people booked. They're excited. So it's this crazy opportunity, not only to share the movie, and because it's free to come, and we ask for a donation because we're raising the money to pay for the music license rights to unlock the film for international play. That's our agenda, right? Is to try and raise enough money to overcome this music license rights, because we have it's unknown music, but it still has a license fee. So we're trying to raise that money to get the film to the world, and it's awesome.
And what many people know that when they make a blockbuster movie and they're paying $500 million and to build these things, it's that there's so many hidden costs in producing a movie without any advertising. It's just crazy. Like Scott just said, he's raising money to pay for the royalties, to the rights to use music from people that are virtually unknown, but they want to eat as well, and it's their love of their craft that they're doing and putting out there. So it's beautiful. And prior to going on the Saturdays, Scott's one of Scott's previous employees, Lynn, was putting out updates on where Scott was in the race. And
this is in 2015, during the race in 2015. You're talking,
yeah. And then all of a sudden they stopped, and it's not like Scott is a little machine. He just keeps going. Maybe he had a flat tire. Maybe he had, because he crashed on his bike, and maybe he had. And so you give him a little leeway, but you're thinking he should have checked in. And then pretty much Scott's been in an accident, no details, I'll let you know. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what the hell? And then days later, as it all is unfolding, there's some pictures that you saw in the trailer of Scott on the gurney, and it's crazy. But aside after this, so when Scott got home, and after he'd finished all his sleeping period of time, as soon as he was able, I made sure that I went to see him, and it was part of the inspiration of who I think Scott is he effectively dusted himself off and said, okay, that was fun. I don't want to do that again. That's off the bucket list. But now what? So, and you alluded to it, that it's from your past and your history. So most people, how long did it take you to embrace that part of you that is willing to get back down no matter how many times that you've been punched and have to get back up?
Honestly, I think I had been conscious and aware for about 10 minutes. in the hospital in the brain trauma unit in Oahu. And so that was a fascinating time. Like, I remember being on the bike. And so in 2013 World Championships, my goal was to see if I could finish this really hard race. When I went back in 2015, I was like, you know, I think I can be top 5. I think if I train hard enough, pardon me, I can be top 5. And that was my singular focus. My crew was dialed in. I had a great coach, phenomenal coach, Craig Percival. And that was the goal. It was like, I went to the Banff Mountain Film Festival with my wife. We watched all these great documentaries. I was like, we should make a documentary about Ultraman. It's really hard. Nobody's heard of it. And it would really be inspiring to see this regular guy do this really hard race. Let's make a documentary. Of course, we had no idea it would take an about face, but that was kind of what we were up to. And I was chatting with Peter Hudson, one of the Australian guys there, and I had passed him, and we were chatting a little bit about, there's only 88 kilometers to go, woo, you know, and I headed off, and I was 10th overall, and I was hunting down number 9 and feeling strong, and everything was great. And then from my perspective, I kind of woke up, and I was like, oh, everything hurts. And I looked, and I'm in a hospital room, and there's my best friend Lyle, my crew chief, and he's sitting in a chair. And of course he jumps up, he's like, hey buddy. And I was like, where am I? Well, you're in a hospital, we're in Oahu, you know, you crashed on your bike. And he was explaining all this stuff. And I was like, so the race is over? He goes, yeah, buddy, it's Monday. Like, I crashed Saturday, right? So he's like, it's Monday night. I was like, oh. And my brain went, oh, I guess I'm not going to win. Right? And then I was like, I asked him a few more questions, and I was a little fuzzy and whatever. And then we made a live video in that moment, because I was like, well, does everybody know I'm okay? And he's like, well, everybody's asking a lot of questions. I'm like, well, can we make a video? So he pulled out the phone and made a little recording. And in that recording, I said, you know, hey guys, yeah, I crashed. I sprained my wrist and I bumped my head, but I'll be okay. And, you know, I'll get back to racing again. You know, just take a little bit to recover, and I'll be back at it. Like, that was my first thing. And it was interesting because talking to Lyle later, I realized that whole process where I woke up, realized where I was, asked what happened, that had happened about 10 times. But it wasn't until the last one that my hard drive held on to the recording.
Yes.
Right. So, but it was right away. So I was in the brain trauma unit for 3.5 days. They bolted my skull back together, and they said, you sprained your wrist and you'll be okay. And you've broken your shoulder, but it's a clavicle, it'll heal. So don't worry about it. Just take it easy. They gave me a little sling, and they sent me on my way. And one of the volunteers from the race used her airline points to get us a hotel at the airport and a flight back to Kona.
Wow.
Just did that for us. My wife had got flown over, again, donated to Oahu, and a friend of a friend of a friend in the race had a friend who lived in Oahu, and my wife and my son stayed there. They babysat my 3-year-old while Hillary came to the hospital to see me. They just did that. Didn't know us from Adam. Like, the support was insane. When we got back to our rental suite in Kona, there was food on the doorstep. Like, people kept coming every few hours. People didn't know. Like, so it was amazing. And I kept thinking, let's just shake it off. I'm fine. I got this. And then we flew back home to Canada, which was really hard. Flying with a really bad brain injury and staples in my skull. And we get to Canada, and I went to my doctor the next day, and I said, or maybe it was 2 days later. Anyway, I was like, hey, Dr. Fugler, like, something's wrong. Like, I can't supinate and pronate my arm. I know they said I sprained my wrist, but it hurts more than something's funny. And I'm like, my shoulder, like, I looked like this, like, you know, I was like, my shoulder doesn't look right, you know, and can we get this checked out? He goes, oh yeah. So they sent me to Red Deer for x-rays. So the next day we put my son in the day home, and we went to Red Deer, and we were like, oh, we'll go to this store, and we'll get some pillows at the home store, and then we'll do the x-ray thing, and then we'll go for lunch, and we'll do the thing, we'll come back, And I get to the Red Deer Hospital and I do the x-rays, and the x-ray tech comes out. She goes, so I've got good news and bad news. She says, the good news is I know why your arm hurts. It's broken in half. And the bad news is she's like, your shoulder's shattered. It's in 4 pieces. Like, you need to go to surgery right now. So I'm sending you to emergency. You need to be admitted to the hospital. I was like, what? Okay. So yeah, I went into emergency, and then I saw Dr. Ganelli. And it was funny because the doctors come in. When you're emergency, they're tired. So they're like, what seems to be a problem? I'm like, well, I was in this race and I crashed and I kind of broke some things. All right, well, I'll send in the orthopedic surgeon. And not to take away from doctors, but they like see person after person. They're just trying to stay level and calm and focused. Mm-hmm. Dr. Ganelli comes in and she says, what seems to be the problem? I said, well, I was in this race and I crashed and I guess my arm's broken, my shoulder's broken. She goes, well, how long ago was that? I said, it was 13 days ago. Well, I said, it was November 28th. She goes, that's 13 days ago. What have you been doing? I'm like, well, I flew back to Kona and then I flew home and it took a while. And she's like, okay, well, she says, I'll go look at the x-rays and see. And she told me later, I was thinking it was probably sprained or whatever. And she goes off, she looks at the x-rays. And when she comes back in the next time, it's like, with the curtain, she's like, when did you say this happened? I'm like, 20th. She's like, okay, we're prepping a room for you. We're going to see if we can get you into surgery first thing in the morning. Have you eaten anything? I'm like, no. She's like, and your skull is broken. I'm like, yeah. So all of a sudden, she's like, she's on my team. Like, she's like, okay, we got to get this going. So I got swept into Red Deer, and by the time they could fit me into surgery, it was, I think, 7:30 at night, and they worked on me till 1 a.m. and they rebuilt they put a big piece of metal in my arm with a hook under the acromion process, and they put a big plate along my arm, and they checked a bunch of stuff on my head, and I had a CT scan and a CAT scan, and they realized I had one of the worst brain injuries you can get. I had a hemorrhage to the frontal lobe, diffuse axonal scarring, which is when the brain is rattled so hard, the white matter and the gray matter shear apart, and I had a point impact at the base. I got this nice little beauty star there, this little beauty mark at the back. Anyway, Red Deer Hospital, Canadian medical system, 100% took care of me. And I was laying there in the hospital bed at 1:30 in the morning, and they just finished all the stuff. And Dr. Ganelli, my surgeon, explained all the things she's done. And my wife tells me the story. She said, do you have any questions for me? And I said, yeah, when can I start training again? She's looking at me like, I just rebuilt you. And she's like, well, what do you mean? I said, well, I'm a triathlete. When can I swim and bike and run again? She's like, well, it's going to be a long time before you can swim again. Your shoulder was shattered. Like, I had to put screws in tiny little pieces, and it's going to take a while. So she says, in cycling, like, it's going to be a few months or more before you can reach the handlebars. Running, she's like, you could probably try running in about a month. I'm like, so 30 days? She's like, well, it's going to be uncomfortable. I'm like, yeah, but I can run in a month, right? She's like, yeah. So that was one of my first questions. And yeah, like, I have a little video of me, and it's like, it's 30 days later, and I have my arm Velcroed to my chest, and I went for a run. And if I'm honest, it was a 12-minute shuffle walk. It doesn't matter. It was a version of a run. And that goal was my anchor. And I always love to say this. It's like taking a boat anchor with a rubber band on it, and you throw it into the future and hook it on something, and then that rubber band pulls you to that goal. Mm-hmm. If you don't have that goal, you're just drifting aimlessly. You got to get clear on something in the future to pull you somewhere. And that was what I did.
Absolutely. There's so much gold in what you just said. Is that, yeah, you need to throw the anchor out and allow yourself to be swept forward and work forward, move forward.
Oh, it was hard as Hades. Like, we had sold our house a week before we left for Kona, because we had found our dream property on sale from a friend of mine, and we're like, you know what, let's do it. And we sold our house, and the people that bought our old house made a quick sale, a cash deal, and they wanted to move in fast. So instead of moving in after we got back from Kona, we moved in 5 days before we went to Kona. And we didn't even unpack anything. Like, we built the beds and a couple things in the kitchen, and we were like, oh, we'll unpack when we get home. And we get home, and I'm smashed in pieces. The first thing I did was spend a week in the hospital. There was my wife by herself with a 3-year-old in a duplex with everything in boxes. Like, and then I got back from the hospital. I had no sense of taste or smell. Everything tasted like I would imagine burnt urine would taste. And it was awful. And that was, once I started running again, this is gross, but I went to the washroom and I peed out it just stunk. It was gross. All the anesthesia flowed out, and all of a sudden I could smell again. I could taste again. So it was a really hard process. In the first 3 or 4 months, I could only stay awake for an hour and a half at a time. And then I had to nap for 6 hours because of the brain injury. And of course, my business was faltering hard. You know, we had to borrow money from our parents to keep it open. We're living in a duplex, and I couldn't remember things, and I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't remember passwords. I couldn't remember how my computer worked. I couldn't, if I stayed awake longer than an hour and a half, my speech started to slur and my eyes started to droop. And I was just like, well, I guess I'm going to bed now. And it was really hard for a long time. It was hard on my family and my crew. Like, they had PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Lyle was a mess. He couldn't sleep at night. Peter Hudson from Australia, the guy that I had just passed, he heard this sickening thud and looked up and saw me cartwheeling down the highway at 70 kilometers an hour in the rain on a bridge, like, and then smashed my skull open and lay there in a pool of blood 6 feet in diameter. He couldn't get on a bicycle for 5 months, and he had a race coming. He would get all dressed up in his kit and walk out to the yard, start bawling, and just turn around and walk back in the house. And I realized that every time I posted a nuance of recovery, they healed.
Mm-hmm.
They all got a little more okay. And I realized not only was it important for me to recover for me, it was important for me to recover for them. Because other people are watching you. And yeah, you don't know what that means to people. And so, yeah, like, it just, anyway, on and on, right? I got so many little things I've learned.
So I'm going to go back to the banner. So on the Warrior Code film, there's multiple ways to get a hold of Scott. There's multiple ways for you to get I'm going to do the promo for Scott, for you to get tickets for it, but there's also, I noticed, a donate button. So if you, wherever you are listening in this world, if you want to see the movie come to your community or on Netflix or that, hit the donate button, because that will help get the royalties paid for the music, which will then free the production company to be able to get it on Netflix and things like that. So even if a donation was wonderful. If you're not in Alberta or in Fort St. John right now and can't see the movie, or I know that if you want to create a film festival or you have a film festival, and talk to Scott about getting the movie on. And I also know that Scott loves to share and inspire his stories of what's going on, as you've listened to for the last hour. He's more than willing to come, or online, whatever, to share the experience. And it's an awesome, incredible movie. I won't give any of the supporting cast is wonderful in their own ways and in their own unique talents. Like, no one is a paid actor, but they're human, and it's the human aspect of each person's characteristic or character coming out that makes this movie so well done. And Drew, who was the director, the cinematographer, he did everything from soup to nuts to get this movie together. Did an incredible job. All Scott had to do was train for a year and a half to get to the first one, and then take 3 years to recover. Nothing for this movie.
Yeah, hiring Drew as the filmmaker for my movie was the smartest thing I ever did. He's phenomenally talented. He made us a really great movie. Yeah, and the goal in making the movie was, the thing about Ultraman is there's only 40 people invited in the world. It's an invitation-only race. There's only 40 people. There's no prize money. Nobody cares for second and third. I guess like first female, first male is kind of a cool thing, but no, there's no TV cameras. It's not in the news. Nobody cares. There's no sponsorships. You do it because you love it. And it's so, in the preview, they talked about Ohana, Kokua, and Aloha. Aloha is the spirit of love and greeting. Kokua is the spirit of helping. And Ohana is the spirit of family. And it's just rich with family. Like you see it in the video clip, you can't even tell, but there's a spot there where I had a flat tire and the film crew was there, but they didn't have any gear. My road crew was way behind, and Jeremy Howard from another guy's team, like I got a flat front tire on a downhill in 2018. And Jeremy's like, "What tire?" I was like, "Front tire." And he just grabbed his team's front tire, ran up, gave me a front tire, put it on my bike, and I was gone in a minute. People need to see how cool that is, that it's all about family. It's about, I want you to be your best today, and I want to be my best today, and let's go at it and let's see whose best is good enough.
Absolutely. So we've got the Warrior Code. What have I missed for best ways to get a hold of you, or have I?
On warriorcodefilm.com, there's a place to contact me and send me an email. I love to speak to high schools and middle schools and elementary schools about nutrition and also the crash and the things I've learned. It's just my passion. So my goal is to do more Zoom calls and in-life, in-person auditorium ones when I'm allowed, and that becomes safe to do so. I know we've got a lot to figure out before we feel good about that world, but I've done lots of different Zoom calls and stuff. So there's ways to get a hold of me there. And I also have another website called yourbodycar.com, because I wrote a book called If Your Body Were a Car, You Wouldn't Treat It This Way. And the fun thing about that is, if you look at the credits for the photography, you're going to see Mr. Neil on there. He's the guy that did all the photos. It's got a whole bunch of pictures of strength training workouts and stuff. And Neil took all those photos. So that's kind of fun. So yeah, if you go to yourbodycar.com, but if you go to warriorcodefilm.com, pretty much everything's on that one page.
Jamie, what's the best way is this still the best way to get a hold of you?
It's an outstanding way to be able to get a hold of me to really move your business forward. Of course, myself, I work with those business operators who are deep into their businesses, doing it all themselves. I help them find ways, number one, to relieve stress. Number two, to be able to actually grow and scale their business. But most importantly, I help those business operators become true business owners, changing from working in the business to working on the business.
That happens so many times. People they have the entrepreneurial seizure and they think, I'm going to own a business. And what you did was bought a job.
Exactly. Exactly.
You can't leave and it controls you. So yeah, there's a big difference between an actual business owner and somebody who bought a job.
You better believe it.
Yeah. And little old me, I've got a landing page, so you can either get a hold of me through bestyoucanbe.ca or 7 secrets at .bestyoucanbe, because I've developed 7 secrets to living a happy, more joyful life, and it's free. You can unsubscribe at any time if you think it's crap, but I know these secrets work, and I know it changes lives. So I'm gonna leave with some. I'm going to let Jamie wrap up. So I'm going to share some of my thoughts on what I would like to leave our viewers and our listeners, because this goes to a podcast. And then I'm going to ask Scott to leave with a few words, and then Jamie will wrap up. So as I said, my name is Neil Thrussell, and I believe that you are worthy of achieving all your dreams, goals, and aspirations. And I just ask you to get up off the couch and go make it happen. Dream big, dream beyond your wildest dreams, because you are worthy of everything that your heart desires. And with that, Scott.
You know what? Chase your dreams. and understand now in advance it will probably be really difficult. I'm here to tell you, I can say confidently never felt like getting up at 5:15 in the morning in the winter to drive to the swimming pool and swim for 3 hours straight without stopping. I never felt like that. That was never something I was excited to do. And because I was crystal clear on my goal, I knew I have to do this to get to that. And I think that's the power of a goal that you're 100% clear on, is you're going to have to do hard things to get there. But if your goal is powerful enough, it's worth it. And you'll achieve anything you want, literally, in spite of any odds. So chase your dreams. Know that it's going to be hard, though. Don't just go, I'm going to be whatever, and then go, okay, I'll just wait for it to happen. No. You set your goals and then you make it happen. And that doesn't come easy. Awesome. Thanks, Neil. I hope that's been useful.
Thank you.
Excellent. Scott shared one of the biggest lessons of all today. And that's really truly about finding the opportunity in the moment. Each challenge, each adversity that any of us is faced with is an opportunity for us to grow beyond who we are as people. So if there's one thing I can say is go. Find the opportunity. It's there. Much like the air is all around us. We can't see it. We breathe it all the time. So is opportunity. It takes opening your eyes and seeking it out to discover it, to really radically change your business and change your life.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And with that, adios, everyone. It was great to see you all. And thank you to our viewers and to our listeners for tuning in.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. It was great. Thanks, Jamie.